Off. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Dan Larsen from CRAFT Kombucha. Welcome to the show, dude.
Good morning.
I forgot to tell you before we hit record, these mics pick up everything. So if your heart skips a beat, we're going to hear it.
Gotcha.
So we just want to be careful if we're like moving our hands around. You guys will be annoyed by this, but like that. So just be cautious of that. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for making time. I say this on every show and I mean it. Time is the most valuable thing that we have, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you so much for giving me and this podcast and the listeners your time today. I know you're very busy. Before we turned on the mics, you were talking about life as it is. You are a father.
That's right. Yeah.
A partner, an entrepreneur, a pseudo consultant as well. Something you just kind of fell into. We can get into that.
Yeah.
But let's first talk about kind of why I reached out to you and why I think you're here today is your product, CRAFT Kombucha. I see it. I don't want to say everywhere, but everywhere. So how did you find yourself getting into this? Why are we sitting here discussing your kombucha product?
So kombucha came into my life about 3.5 years ago. My partner and I had been working at a resort in the Discovery Islands. It's called Sonora Resort. So I was working as a cook there, worked 30 days straight, 60-hour weeks, like 30 days straight. And I came home completely tired and wired, crazy indigestion, like couldn't sleep through the night. It's probably a combination of not treating my body too well, not eating regularly, drinking tons of coffee. And kombucha was just starting to make waves. And I actually lived in this neighborhood at Main and 18th and was going to Choices all the time. And I was funneling all my money into their kombucha. And at that time, it was all coming from the States. And I just kind of thought to myself, it should be coming from here too. And my now mother-in-law was making kombucha. And I was always that thing where I would go to her house and I'd be like, oh, what is that thing? It looks super mysterious, kind of sludgy. And I was like, oh, I don't want to drink that. But I had a sip and started to drink it on the daily and started to get things going back in the right direction. From there, it kind of was started off as a dare. My girlfriend was like, well, I'm working at the Acorn. Maybe they'll start selling it there. And I was like, oh gosh, that's kind of scary, but let's give it a shot. So all of a sudden I was putting things in bottles and I was putting labels on them. I was up late night hand labeling bottles till I watched Dumb and Dumber about 20 times. And from there, I just kept on doing it on the side. I was working full-time as a chef at La Quercia, 60-hour weeks there. And then every minute I had spare, I'd be brewing tea or I'd be putting it in bottles and driving it over town on my way to work or on my way home. It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And at that point, I didn't really have a vision of where it was going, but I just knew that it was something that people wanted. So having worked at a great restaurant with great mentors and meeting amazing farmers that were just like, coming up to the door when things were in season, they were in season like that day.
Right.
And it got the wheels turning. And I thought, well, why don't I bring that to kombucha?
Okay.
And that's kind of where the whole farm to bottle idea came from.
Yeah.
And that's where every flavor has a farm we work directly with. And that's kind of the where it all launched from there.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize the farm association. It makes sense to me now, like looking at the graphics that you have on there and the kind of your brand. That's cool. I didn't realize that. So is it safe to assume that when I see your product on the shelf right now, it's going to be ideally a more seasonal varietal of your product? Or
there's always one or two that are
like mainstays?
Well, we got 7 in total. Right. So there's 5 that are all the time.
Okay.
I've learned some pretty cool preservation techniques through my years of working in fine dining that have definitely helped a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's like completely unique that what we do, but I don't know a lot of people that are doing it.
Cool.
So it's really fun in that respect. And then there's some things that when they're fresh, we use them and we'll use them up as much as we can. And that goes into our kegs too. Like our keg flavors for some of our customers are never the same.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's part of our passion project is going to the farmers market, and every Saturday, Sunday, my wife and I and our son will go to Trout Lake or we'll go to Kit's Market, and it's kind of fun to roll up and just like see what's at its best and buy like 100 pounds of it, and then
Oh, wow.
and then make it into kegs for the next 2 weeks, and then when it's gone, it's gone.
That's so cool.
And then on to the next thing.
I'm going to ask you just to take your earphone wire off the mic. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, technicalities. I'm just like, I'm just sitting here listening to it. I'm like, I hope people in their car right now are not like, what is that sound? That's amazing. I had no idea. Hundreds of pounds of produce you're buying at the market, which is so cool.
Yeah.
You now have a young child. He's 15 months, you said?
13
months?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So do you look at it like you have two kids? Is this a kid as well? These bottles, this company, is this another baby of yours as well? Or has it grown out of its babydom and now is it a toddler, or is it an adolescent, or is it a tween? Where is it right now?
It's a great question. Having seen my son go from like bobbling around to like toddling to like moving around. Yeah, it's I was thinking about this actually a couple of days ago. I think it was crawling, and it crawled for a couple of years.
Okay.
And that's because I wasn't fully involved. I wasn't able to allocate all my energy.
Mm-hmm.
But now seeing that I've been able to make that shift, I'd say we're toddling.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, cool.
But that's the progression, and I'm so happy that it's been a slow progression, because I don't know. I think a lot of great things take time.
Yeah.
And I think creating the vision, creating the connections, being part of a community, it only comes with time. You can't force it, and you can't hope for the perfect clients to come into your life. Like, it all happens with time.
What do you think is unique about this space, and let's just say food and bev, like holistically, to other businesses? Like, what is different between selling in a flat of kombucha compared to, say, selling in a flat of beer, or selling in shoes, or selling in shirts, or selling in vehicles? Like, is there anything unique that you can think of that this industry faces, whether it be challenges or eases, that makes it different than other industries? Or is it's all just cogs and widgets?
In the kombucha industry specifically?
Yeah. Or just like, yeah, for your product, do you
Yeah.
feel like there's something unique about this and the way it needs to be treated and sold? Or is it just like the way you're selling this right now, you could do it with any other product, no matter what it is?
Mm. Well, I think that what we've created with Culture Craft Kombucha is that, and what makes it a little bit different, is the fact that we're trying to connect different communities together.
Okay.
So from a farming community to a restaurant community to the home retailer.
Right.
And I think that space is becoming a little bit different. If a brewery were to name each farm that they get their hops from, they could do that. And then that would be really cool. And I think maybe people would actually care. And I think there's like, well, my favorite beer is from Driftwood, and it's their Sartori Harvest. And it comes from one ranch that grows the best hops. And they only get it once a year, and it's a limited release. And when it's gone, it's gone. And people buy cases of it. And I think that one beer kind of like encapsulates what we were trying to do.
Okay. Shout out Driftwood. Hit Dan up for a sponsorship or something.
Their beer's so good.
I like that. So it is very unique. And do you feel like, you mentioned when you were describing kind of the manifesto of what Culture Craft Kombucha is, you mentioned there's not many other people doing that. Are there others right now that are doing that, like farm focused?
In the States, yes.
In the States, okay.
For sure. Portland area, California. I don't know if people are naming exact farms that they work with.
Right.
That's kind of just my own antithesis of like making that connection and expanding the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part to bringing the awareness to the organic community. Like, all of our product is organic, and we work with organic farms, but also putting emphasis on that community. It's a very tight knit, and that's generally how we find our next flavor. Is a farmer will say, "Hey, have you thought about doing this?" And well, do you know a farmer that grows that?
Yeah.
And it creates the connection from one to the next. And people that are doing great things want to tell about other people that are doing great things.
Yeah, I love that. Because there's so often, I find, this come up on the show a lot, especially I find with chefs, they can operate a lot in silos and not want to share information for some weird reason.
It's true.
So it's nice to hear that there is this industry that there's people that are willing and wanting to share to see the benefit of, again, like holistically, that whole industry.
Yeah.
It's cool that you guys can facilitate that. Obviously, you have a vast experience with pairing flavors and taking things and putting them together and making them taste elevated than they would on their own.
Yeah.
But have you come across anything in a bottle of kombucha that you've either been surprised with positively or surprised negatively? Like, I thought this was going to be great and it absolutely tastes like dog's breakfast. Or did you think that there's no way this is going to taste great and it ends up being a phenomenal product?
Yeah, I definitely have. The one that has surprised me in a positive was I did a pine honey kombucha.
Pine honey.
Pine honey. So there's a technique that I learned at La Quercia where you take young spring pine cones that are full of moisture and you submerge them either in honey or in sugar. And the honey or sugar extracts all the flavor of the pine cone. But it takes a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's generally served with like northern cheeses and stuff. But my chef Adam was awesome and was like, yeah, I'm not going to use the actual pine cones. Do you want to do an experiment with them? And I did, and I ended up making this pine honey kombucha. That was amazing. Wow. And it was nothing like a pine cone. I mean, it had completely transformed. And that was one of the cool things that I guess was a eye-opener about fermentation, is that you can start with something and the end point is miles away.
Yeah. Do you just geek out with this?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Like, do you? Because that to me is just like so intriguing. I'm definitely not a chef. I can cook, but I'm definitely not a chef. But I find at times like I just get so intrigued by seeing how products can completely transform like that. It's just so, and that to me is like, I love geeking out on stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Taking something that tasted and looked one way a week ago, and then looking how it changed and tastes and look now. I find it so intriguing. Yeah. Do you still get excited about the process of like experimenting with things like that with your product?
Definitely. Yeah. And the inspiration comes from really diverse places. Whether it's a restaurant I eat at or a book I read. Right now I'm reading the Noma book on fermentation. So there's a bunch of geeky things in there that no one has thought of. And to just have that like new brainwave of like possibility just gets me buzzing about 20 other things. Because if you can do that with this, why can't you do something like that with something else? And then that just opens a can of beans.
What is your wife's name again? Sorry.
Brittany.
Yeah. How would you describe your relationship? And stay with me here for a second. My partner Lindsay is the pragmatic one. She is the one. She's a bookkeeper by trade. She has her own bookkeeping business. Shout out Lindsay. So she will oftentimes have to pull in the reins on me and my ideas, whether it's a podcast I want to start or a consultancy business I want to start or whatever it is, a symposium I want to start. She'll kind of rein it in and help me see like realistically what I can do with my time or what I should do with my time. Do you guys have that dynamically in your relationship? Is one of you one way and one the other, or are you guys just like two peas in a pod?
She definitely reins me in.
Okay.
She challenges me to be present in the moment.
Okay.
So walking in the door, it's pretty easy with a toddler. Honestly, like walking in the door, I just want to play, and like it's time to go for a walk, but I have to structure that. So I make sure before I walk in the door, emails are sent, invoices are cataloged, like everything is done.
Right.
So I walk in the door and it's family time.
Okay.
And that has been a challenge. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. There's always one more thing to do, as you know. There's always something you could work on. There's always something you could get ahead on. I just try to structure my days differently. So again, with a toddler, with a baby, it was really easy to get up at 6 a.m. and get the ball rolling. So breakfast is happening for him, and I'm getting my day going, or getting those things that I thought I was going to do at 6 o'clock, I'm getting done at the other 6 o'clock.
Right.
So Brittany has been such an incredible support to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so important. Most people, I would say 99.9% of the people I've had on this show, we've been able to talk about the Brittany's in their lives, the support system. I think it's so imperative. Majority of people I had on the show are either entrepreneurs or in a point in their career where they're really pushing the boundaries. And I don't think that can ever be done alone. Like, you need to have that support system, whether it is an intimate partner or a buddy or a girlfriend or whatever it is. That I don't think anyone does anything worthwhile alone. I don't think it actually happens.
I agree.
Can't be done.
Yeah.
Take us back a little bit, or maybe not take us back, but what would the Dan of today tell the Dan? How long ago did you start this?
3.5 years officially.
Okay.
But about 4.
Okay. So let's say, what would, with the knowledge you have today, what are some words of wisdom that you would tell the Dan of 3.5, 4 years ago? Things that you've learned that you're like, wow, I can't believe I was doing that. Or, man, I wish I would have done that.
I probably would have left cooking sooner,
Oh, yeah? Okay.
purely from a focus standpoint.
Oh, okay.
I
Like bandwidth.
Yeah, I would never. I don't ever think I'll fully step away from cooking. I love being involved in the culinary industry, and it's something that's very, very dear to myself, my family. So I wouldn't have done anything differently in that respect.
Right.
I would have allocated more time,
Okay.
and I would tell Dan 4 years ago, just don't quit.
Right.
Sometimes it means like getting off work at 11 and working till 3 a.m. That's okay, because you don't do that forever. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
You know, there's hard work that gets injected at certain points in a business, and then you'll figure it out, and another thing will come up. It's really is like riding waves.
Yeah. Or a bowl.
Yeah. Totally.
Depending on the business.
Yeah.
Then if you're talking to the listeners right now, and there's someone driving in their vehicle and they've been thinking about jumping into whatever it is, their little side hustle, a passion project they have, whether it be, I don't know, a sauerkraut they make, or a salsa they make, or a kombucha they make, whatever it is, would you tell them the exact same thing? Or do you have any other words of wisdom in regards to how to get from an idea or a passion to something either on a plate or in a bottle or in a package?
I would tell them to take it slow.
Okay.
Little by little.
Yeah.
And I think anybody can start a business. It's about staying in business.
Yeah.
And if you try to rush it and miss the fine points, or don't perfect it, you got to live it, and you got to like really love it. And I think that comes with time.
Yeah, for sure. Something you just said that I love to dive into is perfect. Is there such a thing in these bottles? Is there such a thing in your relationship? Is there such a thing in this world as perfect? Can you attain perfect? When you were building plates at the Corcha, was there a perfect plate? Does that exist?
No. I think it's a pursuit. I think it's an ongoing progression. You never stop learning. Mm-hmm. And I was with Adam as we were starting to make charcuterie and learning all about curing of meats. Well, you got 6 months to wait.
Yeah.
You don't get to kombucha is relatively quick. It's about 21 days start to finish.
Yeah.
Still, every time I crack that bottle on the last day, it's a little bit of, celebration. Like,
yeah.
It worked again. Oh, that's amazing. And it was the same thing with learning how to make charcuterie. So the pursuit of perfection is ongoing and never stops. And I think that in every aspect in life, that is a piece of it.
Yeah, it has to be.
It has to be. I was an athlete as a youth, and it was practice. My parents never were like, congratulations, you got a medal. It was, you went to practice twice this week, 3 days a week. Awesome. Good for you. Just keep on doing that, and the rewards will come to you.
Yeah, I totally agree. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the reps for sure.
Yeah.
For those people that are out there that are a little bit ignorant in regards to what kombucha is or how it becomes kombucha, can you take us through Cole's Notes version of those 21 days, what that looks like from start to finish?
Totally. So kombucha in its simplest terms is naturally fermented tea. Mm-hmm. So it starts off as tea, sugar, and water. A culture that's referred to as a SCOBY is introduced. SCOBY is an acronym for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. It's a culture that is full of different bacterias, namely lactobacillus, which is what makes things sour. So when you have sauerkraut, that's lactobacillus. Or if you hear things about lacto-fermented vegetables, it's the same bacteria. It's, again, what just makes it sour. Mm-hmm. So through that fermentation, the sugar is consumed by yeast, and then the byproduct of that is those acids that make it sour. So some people who have kombucha where they say, oh, I don't really like kombucha because it tastes like vinegar, you've tasted something that's made not made properly,
Okay.
or it's over fermented to a point where it has become vinegar.
Okay.
And what's cool about kombucha though is you can still do cool things with it.
Yeah.
I mean, vinegar can be reduced and made into reduction and made into something you can dress a salad with. There's so many things you can do with it. So it's not that bad.
Right.
We bottle age our kombucha a short amount of time in the bottle to allow carbonation to create. And that's been kind of a mission that is probably like the hardest part of doing our kombucha. But when you control your temperatures and you're mindful of your acidity and stuff, you can nail it.
So are you adding any carbonation to? No?
No.
Okay, cool. Is that just like a purist thing for you, or you just don't feel like you need to go there because you're able to manipulate it as best you can?
There's many roads to Rome. I think you can
Yeah.
you can do it however you like. I just prefer the way the bubbles are.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What about this industry? You mentioned that cooking will always be a part of your life. What about this industry lights you up? Why hospitality? Why food and bev? Why even start up a company that's in this industry? What about this space excites you? Why are you populating this space?
So, just a slight backstory. My father was a chef.
Okay.
He started when he was 14 in Copenhagen, moved to Canada, and when he was about 19, found himself at a job in, I think it was like the Bay Shore, one of the big hotels.
Okay.
He was 19 years old with 5 years experience, and he was European and he knew how to cook. So he got a job pretty quick. He ended up cooking in the hotels for 10, 15 years, worked with John Bishop and then some other great chefs in Vancouver. And in my house, my dad always cooked. My mom never cooked. My mom did baking. My dad let her do that. But he was a master baker too. He was amazing. He ended up quitting the not culinary world, but he moved out of hotels when he was about 30 when my mom was pregnant, and he became an instructor at VCC.
Oh, okay.
So he taught there for 35 years.
Oh, wow.
So for 35 years, he got to work alongside some of the great chefs that are in this city now. It's kind of cool for him because he looks and sees them on the news and he's like, oh, I taught that guy like 2 decades ago. He remembers everyone's names, which I always thought was really cool. So in my house, cooking and a meal was always very important. So it was my brother and I, we always ran home for dinner. A lot of kids are like, I don't want to go home. We were psyched because food was always good in our house. My dad would always make sure he'd make things that we liked. And I honestly grew up loving everything. So for me, I think of the restaurant industry as a way of connecting people and having special times. And when Brittany and I think about, what are we going to do with a spare $100? It's not usually like go out of town. It's like, where are we going for dinner? And who can we have over at our house? Who can we cook for? Who can we share a meal with? Because in my life, that's been some of the most special times, is just being able to have that time to connect with people and be around a table and enjoy really good food. Mm-hmm. It just so happens when you're a chef and you can make good food, people want to come to your house more often. Yeah. They're really stoked to come over for whether it be taco night or whatever it is.
Yeah. So
that's a part that cooking is always that is the reason why cooking will always be a part of my life.
I like that. Do you see this show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast? So hospitality in itself is a big part of what I am turned on by and concerned about. Do you see the industry changing in regards to hospitality? And stay with me here for a second. I talk on the show ad nauseum about the success of the QSR model, like the quick service restaurant model, where I think hospitality just doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Because you and I walk in there, we order whatever we're ordering, we take our number, sit down at a table, it's either delivered to us or our name is just called, we go and grab it, we eat it, and then it's kind of up to you and I to define what this restaurant is outside of what we're eating on a plate. And then it's very quickly over, and then we're gone. And I feel like because those models are becoming more and more successful, the idea of what hospitality is or was is now fleeting. And it's going to take a dinner at Dan and Brittany's place to kind of save it. And that's kind of the only place where we'll really get it, whether it be 10, 15, 20 years from now. So when your son is our age and my daughter is our age, I always wonder, what will hospitality look like? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that is an accurate description of what you see going on, or do you say, no, Brad, like I still see hospitality all over the place?
This is a great question. I think I think as long as those quick service places are making really delicious food
Mm-hmm.
that is authentic to them, and it's not just for a trend reason, I think it has a place.
Okay.
And people are busy. People got to eat. And I don't think it'll take away from, say, Savio Volpe or La Quercia or Hawksworth, or great dining experiences where you can actually sit down and forget about
Right.
4 hours of your life
Yeah.
and enjoy, whether it be great wine, great service. I had only eaten at
Blue
House,
Water.
Blue Water once,
Yeah.
and it was theatric. It was so engaging, and I had such an incredible time. And I left kind of like not even remembering what I ate, but I just remember being so, like, I don't know, just pleased with the whole experience. And it was a great interaction. I felt like I learned something. I felt like I had walked away from a friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that aspect, I don't think it'll be lost. What I hope is that people in the hospitality industry, whether it be front of the house, back of the house, stick with it and learn from great people. And I hope that those mentors and those pillars in those great restaurants stay there and pass on their knowledge, because it's those great people in this industry that will elevate everything. And those quick service places, those will exist, and you'll probably see those great people open quick service places because
Yeah.
they know that is, I don't want to say it's a moneymaker. I don't want to say that. It's what people want 50% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder how accessible then will hospitality be to those families or individuals that they can't afford to go to Blue Water Cafe. They can't afford to go to Savio. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
You and I are lucky enough to afford a lifestyle where every so often we can treat ourselves to an evening out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people say, well, it's up to them. Like they get to vote and they get to choose whether they're buying organic or not organic. And I just struggle with that. And that's part of what I want to do with my business and the show is I want to put quality food into people's mouths that can't afford it. I hate that discrepancy. It really
Right.
bothers me. People that need it the most, like there's kids in our city that don't get access to nutrient dense food.
Yeah.
I want to do something to bridge that gap. But going back to the whole hospitality thing is those families that maybe can't afford to put great meals on their plates, they're definitely not going to Blue Water Cafe. So
but what they might be able to do is go to the farmer's market and buy the exact same produce that all those great restaurants are buying.
True, yeah.
And what I'm finding with social media, bridging that gap and highlighting those farmers, is that you can go to Trout Lake and you can buy Millen's tomatoes. I
Yeah.
think he's the guy. He's Millen's tomatoes. Like, Millen is one of the legends out there, and he wins awards for. He's a super humble guy. He like gets uncomfortable when you give him any praise. And there's a lineup of people waiting for his tomatoes. And ever so often, Brittany and I'll be walking through the market, and someone will scoff under their breath, "Oh, I don't think his tomatoes are that great." And we stop and we laugh because we're like,
savages.
You have no idea how great they are.
Watch your mouth.
And like, do you understand? They just don't know that restaurants around the city are like biting at the bit to just be on his like radar, so he
Right.
can sell them their tomatoes.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bridge in that opportunity, and that people can't access the ingredients themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, cooking it is a big part of it, but starting with amazing produce is a large part.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good point. And I think that something you again were saying before we turned the mics on was, and something you had said when the mics were on, is like highlighting these people being the farmers. These are the people that, if it wasn't for them, this show wouldn't exist. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have cooked at La Quercia. Like these businesses would not exist, because without the
Definitely.
farmers, the ones that are out there literally day in and day out waiting to see if that seed is going to produce anything,
Definitely.
they're the ones that should be highlighted and should be given awards. I think personally.
I agree.
Is there any other farmers that you're either currently working with your kombucha company, or that you've worked with when you're toiling at La Quercia, that you feel should be highlighted? Any of the farmers that are coming to mind?
Yeah, definitely. Hannahbrook Farms, always amazing.
Where are they located?
Oh, it's a good question.
We'll
It's like
Google it.
Chilliwack
Okay.
area.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul is such a character. If you ever catch him wearing matching socks, it's a good day. Sapo Bravo, amazing farm. They're near Lytton.
Okay.
Farms that we work directly with, Tuscan Farm Garden is where our lavender comes from. They're
Okay.
in Mount Lehman. Harris Road Farm, that's like a neighbor farm in the Mount Lehman area, all organic, family owned. Just been growing things organically forever.
Yeah.
And then my favorite farm that I get to go to once a year is TNT Dynamite Peaches in Naramata.
TNT Dynamite Peaches in Naramata.
Yeah, so it's on the east bank of the lake, right across from Peachland. So it's right in the heart of wine country. La Friends is there. Joie is right there. They've been growing peaches. David and Catherine, his wife, have been growing peaches for 23 years.
Wow.
So every August, I get a phone call from David about 3 days before he's going to pick the peaches. And it sounds, he's kind of a funny guy and he's super eccentric. And it's like a kid on Christmas about to tell you about his like presents. And he answers the phone and he kind of stumbles on his words. And I always know what he's going to say, that
Right.
the peaches are ready.
Yeah.
And he always asks me, so when do you think you can get here? Well, David, I can be here as soon as
Yeah.
possible. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, if you could be here in the next like week, that'd be great. And I'm like, David, I'll be there 2 days from now. And he's always so stoked. And we drive up there about 4 a.m. and have lunch with him and his wife. And him and his wife still handpick everything. They actually sold like 90% of the farm because they're about 65-ish.
Okay.
They're in that area. And they just couldn't pick all the peaches themselves anymore. So they sold like a big portion of it. But their portion that they still have, they treat like gold.
Wow.
And in the time I'm there, I almost feel poorly because I'll have hundreds of pounds of peaches. And there'll be people driving up the driveway, and I can see David looking kind of scared. He's like, oh, I have no more peaches. And then people drive up, and they're like, well, what about those? And I'm like, oh,
I just bought those.
I just bought all those. But there's a reason. There's a reason why people go there. And it was a friend of mine that was working at a winery that came across these peaches, and while I was working at LaQuercia, and he brought me a couple, and that just started the relationship.
Amazing. That's a bold name for a business. TNT Dynamite
Peaches.
Yeah. They better be damn good
They're
peaches.
so good.
I love a good peach.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call you in August. I'm gonna say, hey, before you do anything with those, I want one in its raw state.
It's my pleasure. Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
And that's one of the things that I love doing too, is when those products are at their best and we do pick them up, is I'll always drop off some for vendors or friends, or I end up being peach rich for at least a week.
It's amazing. I love peaches, man. I freak over peaches.
Yeah.
Something you just keyed on there, I think, is really important for this industry is relationships. So how important right now is that to your business, whether it be with farmers or with businesses that are now selling your product or consumers? So how important is that to you, and how does it populate your day, or where is it at in your mind with relationships overall?
I think it's our number one focus. Yeah. I think for anybody starting a business, if you can focus on the community that you want to be a piece of and you want to contribute to, follow that. Start there. So for us, and for myself personally, it's doing deliveries. It's saying hi to people. It's being present, keeping people in the loop. It's highlighting your partnerships, cross promotion. Like, that's where you start off.
Yeah.
It's really easy from there, because you're working with great people and you want to highlight what they're doing, and vice versa. And yeah, I think it's the most important part.
Who, when you guys are bottling this product, or when you're just conceptualizing this way back when, and maybe it's changed a bit, but when you're looking at the branding and the name and what's in the bottle, who are you making this for? Is this for everyone, or do you have a certain, like, to use the marketing term, like an avatar in mind that you've built? Like, I want 25 to 35 males and females, active lifestyle. Like, is that kind of your niche, or are you like, I'll take anybody?
When we first were getting going, we have a brand avatar, and we developed it in a very specific manner. And I think that's important for any business to gain that jump off point. But as the industry has morphed, it's broadened for sure. And the consumer has become different. When I first started off, I had to really focus on the education side of things. So I had to tell people what kombucha was. I do demos and I'd have to explain it to them. And nowadays, I'll get like a 10-year-old with his mom, and mom will be like, oh, what's kombucha? And he looks at me and he's like, Mom, come on, it's kombucha. And he'll explain it. And I'm like, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
That has shifted. And then it goes in the other direction also. So where it may have started off with a a demographic that was closer to my own, that's open-minded and active lifestyle and aware of probiotics and this and that, it's totally shifted because my mom and my dad are in their 60s and they're right on it too, and their friends are all about it too, and it's amazing that they're conscious of the probiotics in their life and getting away from pop and soda. And my dad loves to have like a Sprite with lunch. That's okay. But he loves the hopped apple kombucha. And if I can get him to make that shift just once or twice a week, mission complete. That's a win in one other direction.
Sprite for lunch.
Yeah. I don't know.
From an aged chef, a Sprite. Gosh.
Well, he's Scandinavian, so if it wasn't a Sprite, it was going to be a beer.
Oh, okay. So I guess it's probably better than...
Exactly.
Well, you could argue more minerals and vitamins in the beer, but hey.
To argue that with an old school Danish man,
it's a fight you don't
falls
want
on deaf ears. He's just like, I'm gonna have my beer, thanks.
Do you have right now out of your lineup? You said you have 7 different flavors that you offer.
Yeah.
Of those, if you were called on to give one bottle to Ludo Lefebvre, very popular chef in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Very influential guy right now in the industry. You had an opportunity to give him one bottle of your product. Which one are you giving him and why? Some serious thought going into this.
I'd probably give him our blueberry ginger.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Said with some haste, but...
Well, because I like them all.
What about the blueberry ginger? Why did that one stick out to you?
I think blueberries are just... They represent a lot of BC.
Okay.
I think it's one of those things for anybody that grew up in BC. It resonates. Whether it was picking blueberries or sitting down to like a bucket of them and just like hammering them back. It's one of the only berries you can eat like popcorn, which I quite like.
Yeah, yeah, true.
But with that said, I'd probably also peach basil. But you said one, I'd probably go blueberry ginger.
Okay, cool. And with
also kind of for me, it represents our region, and it represents what culture is, and it was kind of the idea of, I know ginger does not grow here,
right?
But I feel like it's made its way into our culture with great sushi restaurants and Asian influence.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is a huge part of our now growing culture.
Definitely.
And that was kind of the whole idea behind the name of the business, is that culture is a smash up of communities.
Yeah.
And that's what kombucha really is on a microbial level, but as a regional idea.
Yeah, I was going to ask that next, actually. What is in the name for you, Culture Craft Kombucha? So is that just it?
That's it, yeah.
And then talk to me about the 3 icons in your logo. For those of you that are listening on iTunes, go to the website or go pick one up. So you've got 3 images here. Tell me what they are and what they mean to you and should mean to the consumer.
It's pretty simple. Yeah, tea, sugar, and water.
Cool.
With those 3 things, somebody accidentally made kombucha a long time ago. And that's what I think was really interesting. And a lot of the literature I read about kombucha, nobody can nail it down.
Oh, really?
No, nobody can say definitively it came from here.
Right.
And I think that's because a lot of people were making some sweet tea beverage and forgetting about it. And as humans were doing, transient people going away for a couple of weeks, whether it was to follow their food source or whatever, or just forgot about it. And they came back and there was probably some, slimy looking jellyfish on top of it. Yeah. And I bet somebody dared somebody to drink it and then they didn't die.
Their stomach felt way better the next day.
Yeah. So a lot of literature will then follow it into palace cuisine.
Okay.
A lot of fermentation is pretty mysterious. Mm-hmm. And you think back 1,000+ years ago, people didn't understand that there were live living organisms in things.
Right.
They just knew that it went from one thing to the next. So kimchi's been made in Korea for who knows how long. And that's actually a region where kombucha does kind of wind its way through. It's also in China and then in the palace cuisine there and in northern Russia. So it's kind of in that area and then also in Japan.
Okay.
So when it came to the Americas, I don't really know, but I think that's what's interesting about it. And that kind of was the reason why I wanted to have a simple logo that was representing really at the bare bones what it is.
What it is, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
To break down that mystique, because so many people still, people still ask me what it is, and
yeah.
I'd like to surprise them and be like, it's just those three things.
This might be a controversial question.
Yeah.
What does the mother-in-law think of your kombucha? And
She loves it.
How does it stack up to hers?
She stopped making it because now she can go to a bunch of stores and buy mine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like her product was really great, or was it good, or was it awesome, or was it lacking a certain thing? And if so, what was that? Or are we just going to leave that topic alone? It's just she stopped making it, and it is what it is.
I'm happy to answer the question. Lorraine is so dedicated to high quality things. Like, she will always buy the best of something.
Okay.
And that was kind of one of the sparks in my mind when it came to making kombuchas. You have to use great tea. You can't just use Red Rose.
Yeah.
It
Come
doesn't work.
Come on, Red Rose.
On like
Step your game up.
on the scale of tea and the grading system, Red Rose is actually referred to as dust.
Oh,
It's like
the offal of the tea.
totally.
Game.
It's just like the sifted stuff.
Right.
Whereas like the high quality tea in England especially has a grading system that's characterized by letters and numbers. But one of the acronyms that breaks down one of the highest quality teas is STFOPG1, which stands for Simply Far Too Good for Ordinary People.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And those teas are $60 for 100 grams at Harrods. And they come from Darjeeling. They come from high in the like northern eastern corner bordering the Himalaya mountains. That's where we get all of our tea from.
Oh, wow.
For a bunch of reasons, but it being organic,
Yeah.
it being high quality, it being high in minerals, and all of that comes from actually like the runoff from the Himalaya mountains. So if you just focus on the fact that all that tea is, and the tea leaves are like the fruit, and if you were to make the equation to say wine, it's very similar. If you're growing something in high mineral dense soil, the fruit will be superior,
Far more abundant.
Yeah.
And flavorful.
So Lorraine taught me that, and
shout out Lorraine.
Yeah, she got me to buy tea from it's called Tea Time on Lonsdale in 15th.
Okay.
They also have a place in Kits, so
there you go.
Anybody wants to find amazing tea, Tea Time is where it's at.
I'm gonna have to plug my good friend now and past guest on this show, Paul Bain. Paul Bain is the tea captain for Just Tea. So they are a Kenyan-based tea company.
Cool.
So Paul and his family now source Just Tea from Kenya. They just launched their purple chocolate as well. It's amazing.
Interesting.
If you tried it, I actually have some in my place. I'd love to send you home with some to try.
Definitely.
And I'd love to connect you and Paul. Maybe a little collab you guys could do, which would be pretty cool.
Always looking to make things like that.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do a tea specific, a tea series.
Yeah.
Like focus on really high quality, whether it be Assam or green or white teas or just like different varieties.
Yeah. Paul, I know you're listening, dude. I'm going to hook you and Dan up and you guys will make something super epic.
Excellent.
And change the whole tea and kombucha game. Let's talk challenges for a moment. You talked about sourcing tea from high in the Himalayas. You've obviously been lucky enough to find someone locally here that can get that for you.
Yeah.
What other challenges have you faced from, again, 4 years ago till now that have been really daunting at times? But looking back, you feel like, I'm glad I went through that.
It seems pretty simplistic, but packaging.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I think I saw a Google image of a very different bottle originally. Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just don't have a lot of variety here, and our prices are not good. It's not like being in the States.
Right.
That was probably the biggest challenge. Logistics of delivery is definitely a challenge. But yeah, I think packaging has been the hardest part because it's out of your control. Sometimes things are coming from China. Some things are getting shipped. I remember I think it was last summer. It was July or August. I made an order. I was supposed to get like 2 pallets of bottles. So it's about 3,000 bottles.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to hopefully get me through the summer. And the boat was like broken down in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And I just remember that phone call and just kind of like my brain not computing. And I was like looking at my stock and I was like, this tea ready.
Yeah.
My fridge is empty and I got nothing to put it in.
Hmm.
And they had no answer for me. There was no better solution, nothing. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm just going to close down shop. Luckily, I, just started telling everybody that I knew that was in the biz what I was going through, and was able to find 3 or 4 solutions that weren't the best, but they worked and they got me through. And I think that was something that I learned is, as an entrepreneur, you're not facing the problem the first time. Somebody else has done it.
Yeah.
So confide in people, talk about it. Don't just like internalize and like spin your wheels and think of the problem. It's good to do that and process that anxiety, because if you don't, you're not going to be doing well.
Yeah.
But just talk about it and seek help. And by doing that, I was able to find bottles, get it sorted, and then, make the orders happen.
Yeah.
And that was while I was working way too much too. So it was like on top of a bunch of things, and
just not stress you needed.
Yeah.
Lesson you learned there was?
It actually firmed up my relationship with that bottled supplier.
Okay.
I ended up like calling the president of the company and was like, basically just like poured my heart out and was like, dude, I'm a startup small business. Like I can't tolerate this.
Yeah.
What can we do better together to make this work? And they were happy enough to like set aside a corner in their giant warehouse where they always have backup bottles for me.
Oh,
which
amazing.
They would never have done before. If I had just talked to my like rep, she probably would have been like, oh, she's lovely. I love her now. But
yeah,
she probably would have just been like, yo, pound sand. But going right to the top and just being vulnerable enough to be like, dude, this could sink my business.
Yeah.
Like if I can't make orders, if I can't make bottles, I'm done.
That's great advice for any of you out there listening that are entrepreneurs currently or thinking about it. You got to have those conversations and put yourself out there and be vulnerable. Yeah. And they may say, like you said, go pound sand, but at least you asked the question.
Yeah.
And you're no worse off than you were before. And
at least you've addressed your anxiety.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of us sit in that space where anxiety is all consuming.
Yeah, it can be totally debilitating too. You just don't move, right?
Exactly. And it's having the awareness that just making those small steps, and that's why I always say one thing at a time, small steps, is that it might just be that. If your day is, if you're finding there's like 10% of your day that you're finding anxiety around, you probably should address that 10% before you tackle the 90.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do the other way around because it's uncomfortable to address that. And you'd rather do that 90% of things that you're confident that you can get done and just avoid that 10%. And then by the end of the day, that 10% is still there.
Yeah. Don't avoid it.
Don't avoid it.
There's one thing I've learned in launching my business now is that if you do feel like when you're in that 10% of the stuff you don't want to do and you come up against something that's really challenging, go and do something quickly that you're really good at. That 90% that you can just dominate, get some more confidence and go back to do that 10%.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great too.
I feel for me that's worked for me in regards to ticking boxes and getting things done. Don't sit there and just pound your head against the wall and get frustrated. Go and do something that you're really good at or comes to you pretty easily. Take that as a win and then get right back on the saddle with that 10%.
I agree.
Let's look ahead and pontificate a bit if we can. Where is this business ideally 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Are you still making deliveries yourself? What does it look like? Are you selling in BC, Nova Scotia, London, England? Mm-hmm. What are you thinking?
I see CRAFT Kombucha as a BC brand.
Okay.
With that said, it could go further.
Mm-hmm.
My focus right now for the next 5 years would be for BC. I think there's tons of opportunity, and I'm by no means like a greedy person, nor am I looking for this to become something that is unmanageable.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, it is small steps that lead to it being possible. So I'm lucky enough to have an amazing production assistant. I have a great marketing coordinator, and we're all just getting our groove. And I think once people become proficient enough at certain areas, that's when you can grow a little bit more. And then get uncomfortable and then do it again. And then get uncomfortable and then do it again. So this when I was saying when you were earlier today, you were talking about whether I was crawling and walking.
Yeah.
I think there's still tons of room because I think we're just totally at the toddling stage.
Right.
And the learning the first few years was gaining the relationships that allow for that next step, because you can't skip over that. If I were to have been like, okay, I want to launch into Whole Foods, I want to launch into Choices and this and that, there's no way with the small farms that I work with would I have been able to make that work the way I want it to.
Exactly. You start sacrificing what the product is in your mind's eye.
I could easily go buy 100 pounds of lavender from some online store and I could put it into my kombucha and say it's lavender kombucha. Great.
Yeah.
But I'd really have nothing. I would just have like a drink that I basically bought off the internet.
Right. Yeah.
So now that my relationship is great with that farm, maybe I could go to them and be like, hey, next season, could I please increase what I bought X amount?
Right.
And that would also give them the heads up, and they would be able to adjust what they're doing, because that's always a concern of mine. My blueberry farmer that I work with, his name's Russ. He's an old Englishman.
Shout out Russ.
Such a gem. I actually would not be here without him. He was like a high school counselor.
Okay.
And my friend was becoming a helicopter pilot, moved onto his property in Abbotsford. I went over to visit. I didn't know it was a blueberry farm. I drive down the driveway. My friend's Joel. He's one of my lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you live on a blueberry farm. And they're amazing blueberries. Started to talk to Russ about it. And basically within a minute or two, he was like, I will supply you 100% with all your berries.
Whoa.
All of them. So but what's funny now is like we've grown over the last 3 years, and he's had to buy, a freezer and 2 freezers. And now he's like, so how many hundreds of pounds do you need? So I'm hoping that we can maintain that sustainable relationship. But at the same time, he used to tell me he used to like waste berries, and berries would rot and
brutal
hit the ground. Now he hires like, I don't know, 10 or 15 pickers at certain times in the season, and they take everything off the plants and nothing goes to waste.
That's so cool, man.
So that same model is transformed into a lot of the farms that I work with. The strawberries especially, because the season is so short, and the window of opportunity in picking them from going like from beautiful berries to mush, especially in the spring with the amount of rain we get, can happen overnight. And it's kind of the same situation with the peach farmer that I get this phone call where they're like, there's a thunderstorm that's supposed to come in the next couple days, and if we don't pick these berries, like they're all going to go to waste. So I just buy them all. and there's no waste for them, and it ends up being tangled here.
Yeah.
And that, just to be able to make sure that nothing goes to waste is really important.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're able to impact these farms so dramatically with, this quote unquote little tiny kombucha company. Like you're now because of what you're doing now Russ is now employing more people. There's less food going to waste. Like all these things are major impacts that we should be highlighting and celebrating as an industry.
Yeah.
And I think going back to what you said many times is about that relationship and highlighting that relationship and giving these people a platform to be discovered is so huge, because there's probably, I don't know, another 50 Russes out there in BC alone.
100%.
That
There's
are
so many
wasting fruit, and there's like, oh man, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Right. So whether you're listening and you have a kombucha company, or you want to make blueberry jam, or whatever it is, go visit your friend that has a helicopter that just moved to some property in Abbotsford, and
serendipitous things happen.
Yeah, man.
And
you got to be open to it.
Yeah, if you're open to it and you're willing to have that conversation, to all entrepreneurs out there, just talk about what you want to do.
Yes, put it out there. You got to be vocal.
And just keep telling people and keep talking about it, because that's where connections happen. People naturally in a conversation want to tell you about something that is relatable.
Yeah.
If you just continue to talk about what you want to do, or your dream, or what you're imagining, people will listen. And that's what I'm so fortunate to have great friends that have their own businesses and side hustles, and I've been surrounded by people. That's always a great question to pose, is what's next? How did you get here? What was the challenges? And I love listening to it, because it's those hardships that are usually the most interesting, and it's the relationships that they've created. And then what's next? it's where the dreams come in, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah, man. That's
the vision. Follow the vision.
That's why I love this show, man. I mean, just sitting here for the last 54 minutes and 50 seconds, I just love finding out, excuse me, more about you, more about your product, but really more just about you and like, okay, how did he do this? And like getting inside your brain a little bit, like what makes him tick? Why do you do what you do? What challenges have you had? When I ask that, it's selfishly, it's kind of for myself as well. But it's been amazing, the things that I've learned from this show and the listeners as well. So I appreciate you and everyone else coming on here and being so candid and sharing not only the highlights but the struggles as well, because so many times all we see with these things being businesses or products is like all the sexy stuff that wants to be shown, but there's those days where you get that phone call and your bottles are stuck in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, that's not sexy.
No,
that's the opposite of sexy.
Yeah, and your email's blowing up because it's middle of summer and you got orders. That happens.
You just want to. I can just picture. I don't know you all that well yet, but I could picture you just like finding a dark closet somewhere and just wanting to go into the dark closet and just hoping like that monster goes away.
Yeah, you do.
But you can't, because that monster is your business.
Yeah.
And it needs to be turned into a very attractive, not monster looking thing.
Yeah. But what you said about, finding a distraction and focusing on something else that you're good at, that's where having the emotional awareness that you have to make that separation comes in.
Oh, for sure.
And I love to snowboard. I love to surf. I love to mountain bike. I love to run. So all those little things that I've accumulated in my life, I know are always a positive space for me. Almost always. Maybe not running so much. But those escapes, whether it's half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, so important.
So important to divert your energy. Because it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel
100%.
That like the inner turmoil. But it's what unaddressing it and not moving forward.
Yeah, and not letting it consume you and define you and be how your rest of your day goes. You have to touch base with something else that's a little more deep. And
but looking back, I celebrate those because much good came from it. Like I said,
your
the bottle supplier ended up.
Yeah.
I can like call the president of the company and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And now I can talk about further things like into the future with my growth. And that's why looking 5 years from now, I just see growth, but I don't see as like want to be this big.
Right.
It's all dependent on the relationships and how they can grow. And I know if I were to sacrifice everything and say peach kombucha, it's going to come from any peach that comes from Okanagan.
Yeah.
Well, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
But if I were to stay this path and say, I'm going to only work with this singular farm, I could make it a collaboration. I could work with different farmers. There's other avenues, and it's totally just like a perception change.
Yeah, like a paradigm shift.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Man, I'm stoked to learn more about this. I admittedly had no idea the true story behind this product, and I'm inspired now to. And you guys should be as well listening. Like, go vote with your dollars. That's what makes the difference in this community, and like the industry that you're in right now, and the kombucha community here locally. We're so spoiled for choices here.
We are. Yeah.
We have some great products, and I've had a few people on the show that make some great products, but this product that Dan and his team are making is different, and that's should be highlighted. And I think it's fantastic, and I love the impact that your product now has on this industry holistically. So
thank you.
Kudos for that, man. Really, really cool. We'll begin to wrap it up, but before we wrap it up officially, I have for you 2 questions.
Yep.
They tend to cause some anxiety in guests, so we'll see how you do. The first one is the half a dozen have-tos. So the show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you, Dan, the half a dozen have-tos. Stay with me here. What I need from you is 1 to 6. So you can do 1 or you can go all the way to half a dozen of things you've experienced in your life that you want for or feel like the listeners have to experience in their life. Whether it's a meal you've eaten, a cookbook you've read, a concert you've been to, a mountain you've climbed, something you've experienced in your life that you would like for or you feel like the listeners have to do.
I think the first one of those that came up for me was go on a trip alone.
Oh, cool. You know what? That came up yesterday's podcast. I like that. Get deeper. What do you mean by that?
So when I was 19, I'd been cooking for about like 3.5 years. I worked
Yeah.
at like Boathouse, Cactus Club, did the corporate gig. It was fun, but very unfulfilling. And I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And one of my best friends, him and I went home and I'm pretty sure smoked a joint and watched a movie called Step Into Liquid.
Okay.
One of the greatest surf films known to man. And Costa Rica had a part in it. And I fell in love. And I said, you know what, man, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go live there. And he was like, oh, yeah, sure you are. And I saved my money. And I went there and I lived there for 3.5 months.
Amazing, dude.
And I was like, I'm going to learn to surf. I went to Tofino once, bought the wrong board, short board, like,
Right.
thought, I'm going to do this. And it was a huge disaster. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go immerse myself in it. I'm going to go live there. And I lived in Costa Rica for 3.5 months, surfed every single day, multiple times, just like lived in the water. But it changed so much in my outlook. I met so many amazing people that were just doing things they were passionate about, did things that they loved. And it resonated with me that going by myself, I didn't want to wait on anybody. I didn't want to have another plan. I just wanted to just go do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's transformed my life. I honestly couldn't imagine where I'd be without that. It gave me the confidence to do something uncomfortable.
That's awesome.
To get into, I remember landing in San Jose, Costa Rica. Don't speak Spanish. Don't even know how I'm going to get to this small little town down a dirt road that I was trying to get to. No idea. And people helped me. People got me there.
Yeah.
And then met the right people. A lot of great things happened from there.
So cool, dude.
Yeah.
Solo travel. I like it. Any others? That's a pretty epic one, by the way.
I'd say don't be scared of changing your career.
Yeah, very common these days, but a lot of people still are quite frightened to take the leap.
Yeah, follow something you're passionate in. For me, I went back on a couple trips to Central America. On my third trip, I was in Nicaragua traveling with some dudes from California. They were all doing fun things. I had been inspired from my first trip to go back to school, so I thought, you know what, I got to find an industry that's picking up. And at that time, that was real estate.
Okay.
That was like 11 years ago.
Yeah.
So I went and studied real estate at UBC, appraisal, management, the whole gamut, sales, and I hated it.
Yeah. So I don't mean to laugh at you, but just you don't strike me as a real estate guy.
And I never wanted to work in it. That was the whole thing. I did well in school and I enjoyed it. And I thought it was really like engaging. And at that time I was working with some really interesting instructors and it was a hot time in Vancouver. So there was tons to talk about and a lot to like, just imagine where we're at today. Right. We were talking about that a decade ago and it's all happened. So it's all kind of funny. But I was on this trip in Nicaragua and I was telling people what I was going to school for. And every time I said it, it didn't land for me. And everywhere we went, I was cooking for people. All my buddies were like, we'd be in a small town, no restaurants. And there'd be like some chicken truck come down the road with a guy with a loudspeaker. And they'd be like, Dan, go get dinner. And I'd be like, yeah, of course. And I'd cook for everyone. And I remember being on a bus thinking to myself, like, well, really, what am I doing with my life? Am I actually in love with what I'm doing? Can I see myself doing this forever? And the answer was no. So coming home, I remember sitting down with my dad and talking about my trip and, having a time. And then out of nowhere, I just kind of blurted out, like, Dad, I want to go back to cooking school. And that was on like a Friday afternoon. And he talked to his boss. And by Monday, I was in school.
Oh, dude. So cool.
It happened really just like the blink of an eye. I just said yes. And by the time I knew it, I was in school and I was cooking again. And yeah, it was like kind of a knee-jerk reaction and I just kind of went with it, but it was the best decision I made. I really honestly, if I hadn't made that decision, I wouldn't have ended up getting the job at Sonora Resort. I wouldn't have met my wife. We wouldn't have a kid. She wouldn't have inspired me to start a business. So it really was like that moment where I was really just alone with my thoughts on a bus somewhere far away outside of my life and outside of myself to make that change.
I feel like you're a very self-aware dude. Have you always been that way?
No.
I mean, I don't want to say that I am I've definitely gotten better at it, but do you feel like you're more self-aware now than you were at like 21, 22?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I think it comes with experiences.
Yeah.
I've put myself in situations where I was not ready for it. Whether that was surfing a 30-foot wave or jumping into working at LaCourcia with guys that have so much experience and like are so incredible, and I was just like a kid who knew nothing really, but just wanted to learn.
Yeah.
I think if you're enthusiastic, you can make the next step.
Amazing, man. I feel like that could be a whole other different podcast itself. Do you have any other have-tos? I mean, those are two very epic ones that could get stretched to 6 if you want to. Or
probably, yeah. Those are the two that are biggest for me.
Yeah, cool, man. Those are great. I love those. Those are awesome. The next one that I have for you is the half a dozen haven't yet. So same idea, 1 to half a dozen, 1 to 6 things you haven't experienced in your life yet, kind of like a bucket list, if you will. So do you have 1 to 6 things that you want to experience that you've yet to experience in your life?
I want to travel more in Europe.
Okay.
I need to like have some great meals in Italy. Having worked in an Italian restaurant and like learn the culture and learn the food and the wine, and I want to go see it. And I think that's where it becomes real.
Yeah.
Having been to Napa Valley last year, I totally get. It's funny, like you drink the wine, blah blah blah. It's people tell you about it, it's great. Then you go there and it transforms it.
Yeah.
So I think that traveling more in general would be huge, but specifically to Italy.
Nice.
A
region?
Piedmonte or the Veneto, like near Venice, Emilia Romagna, Tuscany, northern part.
Yeah, cool.
But Sardinia too. I mean,
you're not picky.
I'm not picky. I could find something to like about really any part of it.
Yeah, Italy's amazing. I've only been the one time, but I absolutely was blown away, and I cannot wait to go back. And just completely get immersed in everything that it is. I feel like Italy and France are just like meccas.
Oh yeah. There's so much forward thinking, and in Scandinavia too. Like I've really, like, my family's all back in Denmark. Not all back in Denmark, but my dad's side of the family. There are some incredibly influential people in Denmark that are doing some really cool stuff, whether it be from like architecture to food. I mean, everyone knows about Noma. Yeah. But it's not just Noma. Everyone forgets that it's just one place.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a whole country of like artisans that have always been doing cool things, whether it be like Bang & Olufsen. I grew up in a house where, you hear about Bang & Olufsen, and then you actually go and like see their pieces or have them being made or listen to them.
Yeah, it's art.
Oh, it's next level.
Yeah, they're not just speakers.
Yeah. I'm always wondering what my next career is going to be.
Okay.
I was told by one of my really great friends' fathers that you'll have like 3-4 careers. He's like, in my time, you had one job. You did it forever. He's like, you live in a different time. You're going to have multiple careers. So I don't know. I don't know what the next one's going to be, but I'm always open to opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I used to write that on my LinkedIn profile. I don't think it's there anymore, but I just said like opportunity seeker. Yeah. And that's what I say. Like, I'm just like, man, I'm open to hear about anything and entertain it. I'm not going to say no right away. I mean, depends on what it is, but yeah, you got to be open to those things. Yeah. Any others? Is there a meal in a restaurant that you haven't had yet? I feel like.
Oh, I was thinking about that last night. I'd love to eat at French Laundry.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I think it's.
What about it?
I'm going to stumble on it because there's so many things, but it being kind of a hub where so many amazing chefs have come from. Like El Bulli doesn't exist anymore. Noma's on the list too. I'd love to eat at Noma.
Yeah. 11 Madison Park?
11 Madison Park. Yeah, I would love to eat there. Actually, those are some of the books that I had while I was at Sonora.
Oh, okay.
And it was always like being in an environment with some of the most talented chefs that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. The ideas and the creative process, it's a tornado, and it's usually fueled by a bunch of beers and but it's always such a forward thinking atmosphere. So when I think of those books, it's not just what's in those books, it's what those books bring out in people, and then getting people to start talking about it. And I really have a hard time sitting down to a book that I find really interesting and not texting 5 friends and being like, "Did you know this, and this?" And they're like, "I had no idea." I'm like, "No, neither did I."
Okay, see ya.
Yeah, we'll talk when I see you, and just like plant that seed.
Yeah.
Some of my chef buddies, I know that it drives them nuts. So like I'll be the person to plant the seed and be like, "Yeah, we'll talk in a couple weeks." And it's usually within a few days they're like, "Man, dude, what about this and this and this?" So whether it's like mushroom picking or something, I think those great meals would mean more to me than just like sitting down to a meal. It's kind of like everything that else that leads up to it.
Okay.
So those like Napa Valley and French Laundry's concept of like working so closely with farmers and growing their own food and then creating magic with it, it's pretty amazing. There's also a bunch of Spanish restaurants that I'd love to eat at. Ticket's one of them.
Amazing.
I just can't even fathom. It's everyone sees it on the cooking shows, like what a chef's table and whatnot. But you don't actually know what it's going to be like. You have no idea. No. Even the person eating it is still processing what the heck they just had.
Yeah, and what like you said when you left Blue Water that time, you're like, you don't actually even remember what just happened.
Yeah.
And that to me is what hospitality is. That to me is the whimsy of what hospitality should be. You should step into a restaurant and feel like you just tripped on acid, had an amazing dance, your belly is full, you got spun around a bunch of times and gracefully let out the door.
I couldn't agree more.
That should be what the dining experience should be like. It should be like you went into your grandmother's home, but it was like the trippiest, most delicious meal you've ever had in your life. That to me is what it should be.
And that the great meals in my life, that sums it up perfectly.
Yeah.
And those were the reasons why working at LaQuisha happened for me. It was like a date, and you end up leaving, and you don't, like I said, you don't remember immediately what you had.
Yeah.
And especially when you go there and you have like 13, 14 courses.
As you should.
Yeah. And enjoy like 4 hours of your life. And then the next day you probably sit down and be like, oh, what did I have? And someone will ask you inevitably because you had a great time, and you start talking about it, and you'll notice about halfway they start tuning out because they're like,
doesn't resonate with them.
Doesn't resonate, but you just want to keep telling them.
Yeah.
And that was always the fun thing about working there, is that you got to construct that experience and you got to be a part of it.
Yeah. And
you got to like figure out where it works well, and then you start learning about wine and knowing everything that goes into it.
So dynamic.
And that conversation. I had such a pleasure working with very, very good European waiters that taught me a lot about wine, and being able to have that conversation about a certain dish and a certain ingredient that would be either good or really, really, really bad, and understand that. When I sit down to a meal and it does end up being that amazing experience, those conversations had to have occurred, and I think that's what you're paying for.
Yeah.
And that's what great restaurants bring to you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just in and out, number on the table.
Yeah.
Here's your food, and you're gone.
I haven't had a chef on for a while, so I'm going to ask you a super selfish question, and I'll just do it because it's my podcast, and I'm going to do it anyway. I have in my freezer right now a fresh, in quotations, pig jowl that I got from my farmer up in Williams Lake. Shout out Big Bear Ranch. Shout out Rainer. Nice German guy. Does beyond organic farming.
Nice.
What am I doing with this pig jowl?
It's like bacon. So it's like you can treat it the same way.
Okay.
You could slow roast it.
Okay.
If it's got skin on it, it'll get crispy.
Okay.
I would probably like dry rub it with salt and sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Let it sit overnight with a bunch of spices,
Yeah.
Thyme and rosemary and all the usual suspects, pepper.
Yeah.
And then slowly roast it like 300 degrees.
Covered, uncovered?
Uncovered.
Uncovered.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when it's the skin, you want to do it at like a low temperature so that the skin dries out, and then at the very end, crank it up, and the skin will get crispy. There's actually, you could watch like Marco Pure White's like pork belly.
Yeah.
Technique. He's also a legend, so
yeah,
you could probably do the same kind of thing with that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have been racking my brain. I haven't Googled it or went on YouTube yet, and I thought, oh man, he's here today. I should ask him. And there you go. So I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll post it on Insta and tag you in it and see what it looks like.
Hope it works.
I want to say thank you so much, Dan, for coming on today. I feel like I was ignorant to thinking this was just going to be a conversation about kombucha. Obviously, I do want to highlight your product and what you're doing and celebrate your company because it is amazing. But I think it is much more than just a liquid in a bottle. I think what you're doing is super, super cool. I think is what the industry needs to be focusing on, whatever you're producing. If you can somehow take a bit of what Dan and his team are doing and impact that on your product, we will all be better off. So I'm super happy to fly your flag and support you any way we can on this show now with your product. I would have been before, but now I'm even more motivated too because of I understand the story even better. So
Thank you so much.
I hope that you guys listening took a lot from this interview. I know I did, and this is why I do it, because I truly enjoy, like I said, getting into people like your head. I find that so intriguing. Yeah, man, I just appreciate what you're doing, and I want to applaud you for this version of your trip to Costa Rica. It just looks different, right? It's the exact same thing. It's just it's a bottle of kombucha instead of a 30-foot wave.
Yeah,
So
it's something I'm proud of.
yeah,
More so than selling a house.
yeah, exactly. Which is awesome. Which is awesome to have that awareness. And yeah, I'm happy that you did it. I'm sure a lot of your consumers are, and people that listening that haven't tried it, when they do, they'll be very happy that you're selling kombucha instead of real estate as well.
Thank you.
But hey, if you have any questions about real estate, I'm sure Dan's open to helping you guys.
Yeah, it's funny actually. It's still something that I have a laugh.
Oh, for sure.
Vancouver's a circus, so.
Speaking of reaching out, how can the listeners best support Culture Craft Kombucha? How can they get in touch with you? How best to connect with you and the brand?
So you can connect through our Instagram, direct message. We're constantly checking into that. We
Cool.
love supporting other small businesses and entrepreneurs that are doing cool stuff. So hit us up. You can also find our email on our website. So
Awesome. Easy. And the website is www.
culturecraftkombucha.com.
There you go.
Yeah.
That is Dan. I am Brad. This is the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as you do week after week. Without your support, this show would not exist. That is it. We are out. You know what to do. Until next time, guys. Be good and do good. That's it, man. Done.
Thank you.
You did it.